Welcome students. This session is for MA final year English Literature paper 8A, that is New Literatures in English. In my previous session I have already completed 4 stanzas of this poem, The Death of the Bird by A.D. Hope. Just as a recap, let's see what we have already done in this poem. In this poem, The Death of the Bird, A.D. Hope talks about Australian society and the people who live in Australia as exiles and consider England as their home. At the best, they love this country, that is Australia, but they also love the mother country, and it draws them back, often actually. We also see that Hope uses this phrase in his stanza for this bird, that going away she is also coming home, and this directly applies to that feeling of being estranged from mother country. When we look at the poem, it seems that Hope, while writing about bird and its entirely natural annual migration, is aware of this underlying shadow of meaning to do with people. The whole sense of going home when home has now become a different place. So in the initial stanza, Hope describes how bird is impelled on its migration year after year, and readers, right from the title, they know that this journey, this time, will result in bird's death. A.D. Hope can be seen in the initial stanza presenting rare and beautiful images of bird, and how this tiny creature, that is bird, is drawn year after year to that tiny point on the map. Now let's continue with the text. A.D. Hope further writes that, and day by day the whisper of love grows stronger, that delicate voice more urgent with despair, custom and fear constraining her no longer, drives her at last on the waste leagues of air. So day by day the whisper of love grows stronger. Slowly that call to go to that other place, to go to those warmer areas, day after day this need grows stronger in the bird, and she just can't resist this flight anymore. He writes that delicate voice more urgent with despair, that initially that feeling of this journey was little delicate. She was deciding whether she should undertake this flight or not, but slowly this delicate feeling is now full of despair. It becomes urgent. She decides, the bird decides that she should take up this journey. Custom and fear constraining her no longer. She feels to take up this journey so urgently that she is not able to cancel this flight, and she is not at all now fearing, and nothing is stopping her to take this journey. Drives her at last on the waste leagues of air. So this is the final drive, that is her final decision to take this flight into the waste leagues of air. And it seems that poet already anticipates that this journey of the bird is a wastage, because she is going to cover a huge distance, and right from the title we know that this journey is going to result to her death. A vanishing speck in those inane dominions, single and frail, uncertain of her place, alone in the bright host of her companions, lost in the blue unfriendliness of space. This bird, in comparison to the sky when she is flying, she looks so weak against this vast region that she has entered, because the dominion of the sky is huge, and the existence of the bird, the presence of the bird, in the sky is just like a vanishing speck, single and frail, uncertain of a place. She is so unnoticeable, just like a speck, and she's alone and she's single and she's weak. So there's this weak image of this bird in comparison to this strong sky is given over here. And though there are a lot of companions with her, but she is alone in the bright host of her companions. Here, poet hints that this journey everyone has to take all alone, and bird, though she is surrounded by a host of companions, she is all alone in her endeavor, lost in the blue unfriendliness of space. Here perhaps Hope is hinting that sky is blue unfriendliness of space. That is, it is quite metaphorically shown that this space, this sky is unfriendly, it's unsuitable for the weak body of the bird. She feels it close now, the appointed season. The invisible thread is broken as she flies. Suddenly, without warning, without reason, the guiding spark of instinct winks and dies. The bird has traveled quite a long distance, and now she is able to feel, she is able to sense that the season for which she traveled, that is to the warmer areas, that season is close now, it's quite nearby. But suddenly, the invisible thread is broken as she flies. Something changes, something which has not been anticipated. It happens because she is weak and she is quite alone. This invisible thread, this thread that was guiding her path, that thread looks like it's broken. Suddenly, without warning, without reason, the guiding spark of instinct winks and dies. And here poet, he describes this tragedy that happens with the bird without any warning or without any reason. This tragedy happens because it's an instinct that drives this bird to navigate hard and take up this journey, and this journey suddenly comes to an end because the spark, the guiding spark, suddenly dies and the bird feels lost in this vast region of sky. Try as she will, the trackless world delivers no way. The wilderness of light, no sign. The immense and complex map of hills and rivers mocks her small wisdom with its vast divine. The poet here is describing this vast geography of earth, which is very, very complex and complicated, and its design is so vast that it looks as if this whole world, which is so huge, is making fun of the bird's small wisdom. This bird, she tries very hard in this trackless world. She's trying to find her way, and she's trying her best to do that, but suddenly this world becomes trackless for her. She loses the clue of her flight, no way, the wilderness of light, no sign. So without this instant in her, the light has also become wilderness, and there is no sign over there to guide her to that place where she is destined to go, where she wants to go. The immense and complex maps of hills and rivers, this is the whole geography that poet gives of this earth, that it's so complex, it's made up of hills and rivers. They appear as if they are mocking her small wisdom with its vast design. The whole world is so huge. The bird, in comparison to this huge world, has very little wisdom, and this bird, she loses all that light and all that instant in her, and she feels lost in this huge world. And darkness rises from the eastern valleys, and the winds buffet her with their hungry breath, and the great earth, with neither grief nor malice, receives the tiny burden of her death. So in this last stanza, the poet points towards the direction that is eastern valleys. Usually East is related to light, but here the darkness is rising from eastern valley. Darkness also denotes the darkness of death. And here, for the bird, the darkness is rising because she has now lost her way. These words, they are so striking that it appears to the readers that the end of the bird is nearing by. And the winds buffet her with their hungry breath. The, wind, the winds also strike this bird so forcefully, it looks as if the wind is also hungry for this bird. And ultimately, in its hunger, we see that this wind, it kills the bird. And the great earth, with neither grief nor malice, receives the tiny burden of her death. The earth also feels no grief or any sorrow for the death of this bird. And this bird, which is so tiny, which is so little, which has never ever threatened anyone's life intentionally, this bird also is seen to be dead, and the whole nature is simply indifferent towards her death. The death of the bird is just like a tiny burden on earth, and this earth can be seen as receiving this dead body of bird indifferently. So here we can say that nature becomes an active enemy to this tiny bird, and in the end we see that though nature is passive and it's also gentle, but the journey of this bird is over, and in a similar manner life of any human being is over, and that is the way of any life. If we analyze these last 5 stanzas of the poem, we see that the bird hasn't the stamina or faculties she once had, because she's single and frail, uncertain of her place, alone in the bright host of her companions, lost in the blue unfriendliness of space. So these are the words that poet uses for this bird, that the bird is single, it's weak in comparison to this huge universe. Finally, darkness overtakes the flying flock, and she falls to her death. The last lines of the poem summon up the poet's views of the birds is received without grief or malice. So this death of the bird, it is seen without any grief or malice, but simply as another of the numberless lives and deaths inhabiting the earth every day. This shows that the earth is indifferent to the death, because numberless lives end every day on this earth. Yet, the tenderness with which author presents the life of the bird belies this. Though on the outward it looks that the whole world is indifferent to this death of the bird, but the tenderness with which Hope presents this life of the bird, it does not match with it, because it does affect the readers, and we are moved by this death. The poem itself individualizes the bird and therefore gives great dignity to its existence. This bird is individualized in the poem, but we can see how this journey of a bird is strongly connected to the journey of life of human beings, and this individualization, as well as the idea that is put across in a very generalized form about life on the earth, the whole thing, the way it is dealt with so sensitively, gives great dignity to this poem and to the existence of the bird as well as its death. That's the end of this poem, Death of the Bird. Thank you.